the retail bulletin. I'm going to say that again because we just hit the record button. So hello everybody and good morning and welcome back to the retail bulletin. Apologies for the earlier technical issues that we had for our first session today. Hopefully it didn't spoil your enjoyment. We had a terrific audience number and I'm sure you'll agree the chat between Rebecca and Bill Grimsey was compelling enough indeed. If I can ask my colleagues to please remove the holding slide that we can currently see in front of us. You can see hopefully very soon my face, there you go, and all the faces of my panel as well. This is our first full panel session of the day. We're having 4 sessions in total, running very tightly back to back, finishing at lunchtime today. So just a morning event today. And this one now, Future of the High Street, remains the theme, but talking about going back to strategic basics to future-proof retail. And we've got a great panel lined up and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in just a second. I'm Darren, I'll be your moderator for the session, hopefully tech issue free for the next 45 minutes. And please do get involved. We have a Q&A button for your use. You used it very well in the fireside chat this morning. So whichever device you're on, somewhere on your screen, there is a Q&A. Please use it and I'll make sure that your questions do get asked to either the whole panel or you might want to ask a question to one specific panelist. My dog's around in the background. She's fast asleep right now, but she may join us. For those of you that have seen sessions that I've moderated before, Scamp sometimes makes an appearance, but right now she seems to be enjoying a mid-morning snooze, and why not? Wouldn't we all enjoy to be able to do that as well? So I'm going to get my panel to introduce themselves and then we're going to kick off with the session proper. So good morning, lovely panelists. Ken, I'll start with you if I may. Who are you, sir? Tell us about you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Daly. I'm the CEO of JML or JML Group. We are an innovative consumer product brand. We develop products in various categories: housewares, small domestic appliances, health and beauty, DIY, car care, pet care. And our real point of difference is that we promote these products through video, historically in stores. So we have 5,000 screens in retail stores up and down the UK and Ireland, but obviously a big e-commerce piece, TV home shopping, and we have distributors in about 50 countries around the world.
Welcome, sir. Well, we've been on a panel together before, so it's great to work again, and welcome back. Penny, tell us about you.
Thank you, Darren. So my name is Penny Grivia, and I have been the MD for UK and Ireland at Rituals Cosmetics for almost 7 years. For those of you who don't know Rituals, it's a fast-growing international brand known for its bath, body, home fragrances, and gifting, and wellness products inspired by ancient traditions.
That lovely brand, and so thank you very much for being here yourself and on behalf of your brand today as well. Thank you. David, wrap up the panel for us. Tell us who you are, sir.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm a Group MD of a small group of companies based here in Exeter. 2 publishing companies, a calendar publishing company and a card and gift publishing company. But the largest component of our group is Calendar Club, which is a pop-up retailer and is probably the most relevant company for today's session. And on a day-to-day basis, I spend my time sorting out Calendar Club property deals. So that's who we are.
Welcome, sir. I was saying to David when we were talking yesterday, it's one of those signs of Christmas is coming. When you start to see Calendar Club popping up, Advent calendars in the supermarkets and Calendar Club popping up on the high street. It's definitely a change of the seasons notification for sure. Look, guys, great to have you with us. I'm looking forward to talking. What a pickle we're in right now in the UK, right? There's so much going on with regards to Brexit, pandemic, you know, that small detail of a pandemic. Now we have a fuel crisis, a logistics crisis. No wonder the high street is being hammered all the time. And for a couple of decades, like I said in the session before, there have been those that is arguing that the high street is terminally ill and it's never going to recover. And there are those that are arguing absolutely not, and it's still got somewhere to go. It's still got things it can do, and it still has a place in the hearts and mind of the community. And I think we really saw that in the pandemic, where everyone decided to stay local and the independents really came into their own. All that said, the pandemic also saw a huge surge to online shopping, even more than we'd ever seen before. So there's so much to unpick here, and I'm going to kick it off with this panel and try and extract out some views. And Ken, I'm going to start with you, if I may, please. What can be done by retailers and town planners to make high streets more attractive? What can be done?
Well, I think there's a number of things that can be done, and a lot of those are already in train. I think from a town planning perspective, liberalising the use of properties so that we see more cafes, more restaurants, more cafes with seating outside, more community facilities, more gyms, and more residential as well. And a lot of great work is being done in those areas, and progress is being made. I think a rates review, I'm not a bricks and mortar retailer myself, so I'm not that close to it, but the rates review seems to be absolutely urgent to level up the playing field between bricks and mortar and online. So, but a lot of those things are going ahead as we speak. They will take some time. From the retailers' perspective themselves, I think it may be a cliche, but becoming more experiential is fundamentally important, and a lot of retailers are making great progress in this. But the one thing that I would really like to appeal to retailers is to say, one thing that you really do need to do is to build closer partnerships with brands in particular, because brands have the power to drive footfall into stores. They will understand the customer base that they have. They will understand the marketing plans that they have. And they really are an incredibly powerful tool for driving footfall into stores on the high street. And I would say to retailers, put your best people on this. One of the things that we've seen over the past 18 months is that face-to-face meetings have pretty much not happened. And so we're all on Zoom calls or on Teams calls. And I think there is a danger that retailers put junior staff on the relationships with their suppliers, with their brands, with their partners. And I would say, you know, I'm sure there's some great people coming up through the industry, but you really do need to put your best people on these partnerships, because the brands, as I said before, have the power to drive footfall into your stores. And if they're neglected, they will be forced to go direct to consumer even more than they do at the moment. So that really is my appeal to retailers. Put your best people, put your top people on the relationships with the brands that you work with.
Do you have any insight on why they're not doing that?
Well, I think, you know, it's been a very, very difficult time for everybody over the past 18 months. And as I said, the move away from physical meetings has certainly restricted the relationships. And I think, you know, it's a wider kind of business issue, isn't it? I think we've all found that video calls have been an extremely efficient way of conducting business, but we're all missing out on the relationship side of things, the ideation, the communication, all of these things. And then I think there probably is a temptation from bricks and mortar retailers to delegate those discussions to more junior members of staff, where, you know, they've got, you know, we understand they've got some really, really big existential issues to deal with. And I'm sure the top brains in many retail companies are trying to deal with those. But I would say do not neglect the partnerships with brands, because you know, they're a huge friend to retail. They have the power to drive footfall. But on the other hand, if you neglect those relationships, then you're going to create more competition for yourselves with those brands selling direct to the consumer.
It's a really interesting point, and actually a beautiful segue when we're talking about our best people into you, Penny, if I may, because we'll talk about your retail estate later, but leading on to that point about having your best people on this, how do you educate your frontline employees on your future strategy for success? How do you take care of that?
Sure. Well, if we just take it one step back down, and we all know that it's been well documented that consumers don't see the customer's journey as a separate channel. And the channel for many now is how to align your business in a way that we don't differentiate between physical and digital. And it's taking us, a couple of years, and it's still a journey in educating our frontline staff on understanding what omni is. And to help them understand that a customer buys into a brand and not a channel. So we've been educating them, and they understand that the lines are becoming blurrier. The customer now can start their journey online and end in store, or begin in store, and then customers make their purchases online. But what we do know is that if the service is frictionless, then you will get a repeat customer. So of course, COVID helped us accelerate our digital strategy, like it did for a lot of retailers out there, and really helped us adapt to this kind of new retail reality. So, we focused a lot on click and collect, personal shopping, in-store fulfillment, endless aisle, was obviously still maintaining a great service. If we look at the Netherlands, our home market, when customers placed orders online, then you did have, staff from store cycling. Obviously, you've got smaller neighborhoods there, but cycling and delivering those packages. We obviously don't do that here because cycling is more dangerous, but we do make sure that every single touch point with a customer is a personalized experience. So, we know that customers will want to buy, anytime, any place, anywhere. There will definitely be, a bigger blur between physical and virtual, especially with the rise of social commerce. And then developing our people and using them in the right way, I think, is going to be crucial, because at the end of the day, they are our biggest assets.
Yeah, and I don't think that's always remembered, and so it's really lovely to hear that as well. Because as an aside, I assume that most of your store staff were furloughed at the beginning of the pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns that followed. How did you maintain kind of a sense of relationship and checking in, I guess, with those people that were stood down for the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I am really proud as a team that we did here. So we had an amazing engagement from all our frontline people, and we had well-being sessions. We had tutorials. Whoever wanted to kind of take part could take part. We really focused on their well-being. And every week there was a check-in. We were doing yoga classes online, cooking classes online together, and we kept that going for many months. So when we did come back, they were really kind of ready to hit that ground running from the word go, and they felt really energized and supported from us. And it was lovely to see. It was a great period for us coming together like that.
Excellent, and great to hear. And I'm sure many people watching will be nodding in agreement about how treating people that way has been more important than ever. Actually, it's not just the right thing to do. It's become so much more than that in the last 18 months. Thank you, Penny. I'm going to come back to you shortly. Have a sip of coffee, take a break. I'm going to pivot the conversation slightly to cost. Part of the reason the high street has suffered so much is purely the cost of doing business. And as an aside, and I'm just going to say it anyway, be a bit political, it's a scandal how little support this government has really given the high street, not just over the pandemic, but beyond that, going back years and years. And don't even get me started on business rates. But let's think about rent. And David, obviously, rent is one of the biggest costs a retailer can carry, and it puts people off expanding or indeed surviving in some stores. Turnover rent's become quite a big thing in the last few years, even before the pandemic. Is that the new future, maybe?
I think so. I certainly hope so. And I believe that it's important to move in that direction. But, from my experience, landlords don't like the idea. They don't like giving up a fixed income for a variable income. And okay, few businesses would readily make that choice, especially as rents are falling, so they're not getting compensated for the higher risk. But on the other hand, the alternative of a high fixed rent is equally unattractive to retailers. So we need to find a better balance here. Landlords also argue that it makes asset valuation more challenging, but I don't buy this. Outlet centres where we operate, we have some stores and outlet centres, they've always worked with turnover rent, and it doesn't seem to stop their assets being valued appropriately. Nor is it an issue on the continent where turnover rents are more common. Landlords also worry that it exposes them to the operating efficiency of retailers. I mean, this is true, but equally retailers are exposed to the operating effectiveness of shopping centres. We are primarily in shopping centres and much less on the high street. So it's shopping centres for us that are the key landlord. And this is, I think, the key point, really. Landlords and retailers need each other to work successfully. And this is, I think this should be better reflected in a shared risk approach to rent. And I think the final reason why landlords don't like it is because it exposes them more to the economic cycle. I'm not sure they quite articulate it in that way, but with turnover rent, if consumer spending slows, that's going to translate into lower store turnover and therefore lower rental income. At the moment, if you like, or historically, with high fixed rents, retailers insulated landlords from this cycle. But there's no reason why that should be the case. There's no reason why retailers should insulate landlords and pay a high fixed rent, regardless of the underlying economic situation. So I don't really buy into the arguments that landlords put forward against the idea of turnover rent. But I think there are also some challenges for retailers with a turnover-based structure. It means they have to be much more open about their turnover. And some retailers don't like that. Personally, I don't have a problem with it, but I think it should be matched by landlords being much more open about footfall, basket spend, visitor frequency, visit duration, and so on. They have these numbers, but they very rarely share them with their retail partners. Perhaps more importantly, a big challenge for retailers is how they define turnover and how this appropriately reflects the interaction, as Penny was talking about, the interaction between the physical store and e-commerce. And I think here retailers might be guilty of sort of taking a slightly one-sided approach, and they need to be more balanced. It's okay, in my view, to deduct from store turnover all returns made to that store, even if they were purchased online. But the balance comes, I think retailers also need to value the click and collect orders that are made online but picked up in store. I don't really buy into these ideas, this sort of complicated and theoretical value that can be put on the halo effect and somehow getting that added into store turnover and rent calculations. But the value of returns and the value of click and collect are pretty hard and fast numbers, and retailers can provide these and landlords can trust those numbers. So I think they should be part of the turnover calculation.
If an audience member now was thinking about opening retail sites and they were in conversations with landlords, what about rent-free? So lots of people are saying now they would expect a level of rent-free 6, 9, 12 months on a long-term deal, a 5-10 year lease. Is that a reasonable expectation from landlords now as well?
I think it is. I think it's the nature of the market at the moment. And I think the problem here in a way is that landlords are protecting the headline rent number, but allowing a cost reduction by providing either support for store fit out or rent-free periods. But the problem with that, from my perspective, is it makes everything very murky. It's not very transparent. Yeah. And I think it would be much easier for the market to clear, if you like, and for the market mechanism to work effectively if there was greater transparency and a clearer indication of the prevailing rent that is being paid, if you like, the effective rent that is being paid, not the headline rent.
Got it. Thank you, sir. It's a really compelling insight as well, and I guess useful to anyone watching and still toying with the idea of opening more stores. We've got a question in actually, which is aimed at all three of you. So I'm going to take this natural point to ask all three of you in the same round as before. So this is from Robert. Thank you, Robert. He'd like to hear from each of you on how your businesses, your brands are supporting either high street and town centre regeneration at the moment, benefiting brands and communities they serve. So we'll start with you, Ken. How is your group, JML, supporting high street and town centre regeneration?
We are firmly committed to bricks and mortar retail. We have an e-commerce side of our business. In fact, we launched our first transactional website in 1999. So we've been online for over 20 years, but retail is kind of in our DNA, and retail is absolutely central to our strategy. We spend a considerable proportion of our revenues on marketing, and that marketing is targeted at retail stockists, the vast majority of that. And that spend has been going up year on year for a number of years, despite the growing importance of online. So we are absolutely firmly committed to bricks and mortar retail. Our concept is, we like to think experiential, and we bring some theatre to the store environment. So, I'd love to say we were doing some grand kind of charitable or, we can't say that, but what we are doing is we're firmly committed to our customers who want to go into retail stores. We're firmly committed to driving footfall into retail stores where people can touch and feel our products. So it's central to our plans going forward.
Thank you, sir. Penny, over to you. This question, how are you guys supporting town centre high street regeneration?
I think just repeating what Ken said, Darren, that we are a bricks and mortar business, Rituals. So 65% of our business is represented in the high street. We've got, I think, really beautiful stores. I mean, in a lot of the high streets, we open these beautiful stores, and we just make them so beautiful that it's hard not to kind of bring the customers in. I think the marketing is super key as well. We're continuing to spend money on marketing, especially doing kind of bounce backs with all our activity to drive customers into the stores. We do quite a lot of partnerships, so the managers and our marketing team really go out there and try and get partnerships and B2B deals with kind of other businesses. So we're kind of helping other brands as well. But I think, our vision is to continue to increase our retail estate in the next 5 years. And already post the pandemic, we're seeing a 30% increase on our visitors versus 2019. And I think, that says a lot. I think the appetite is there. It's just really making it desirable and offering that personalized service to every single customer that walks through your doors.
And do you go for, do you have a deliberate type of shop you go for? Because I've seen some of your stores, and you do go for some really lovely classic buildings that sort of really set your brand off. Is that a deliberate strategy, or you just roll with it and see what your way? I
think for us, because the brand awareness of Rituals is still fairly low, we obviously started our strategy with kind of key cities first, or London first. And now we've got an awareness of 50% in London. But as we're moving outside of London, we need those kind of visitor numbers where the awareness is low. And hence why I think location is crucial, making sure that you're in the kind of the right place with the right size store.
Got it. Thank you. And David, your stores have a temporary nature, a pop-up nature about them. They're seasonal. So how does that make it harder for you to kind of have a long-term strategy of support around the high street, or is the very nature of filling empty space for the season just a way of supporting as well?
I think it is. I think that's probably our only claim. We are making shopping high streets a more vibrant and more attractive destination at a critical shopping time of the year. But most of our store estate is in shopping centres, and so the high street is perhaps gets a little less focus from us. But as a number of smaller shopping centres are running into significant problems, we find ourselves moving out of smaller shopping centres into high streets. I mean, that happened a year or two back in Ayr, for example, and we've run a very successful shop on the high street in Ayr rather than in the shopping centre. But we're a pop-up store by nature, so we don't have an awful lot to do here, I think, except pay our rates, which are very high and would be spent towards revitalising high streets.
Yeah, I mean, hold that thought about pop-ups as well, because I want to explore that with you a bit more later as well. But yeah, absolutely. I'm sure the rates are well spent by every local authority. I'm sure not. Actually, it was interesting in the last session. I learned something new, as I always do with these webinars, is that Woking Borough Council have just borrowed £1 billion to buy the 2 shopping centres in Woking. And it's part of their key strategy of revitalising the whole of that town centre. So I thought that was quite interesting and quite encouraging, really. I hadn't actually heard that story, so I'm going to look into that more. But yeah, good to hear. Ken, I'm going to come back to you, if I may. Obviously, you have a strong online presence as well, and I know that you benefited from that in terms of the pandemic. But now, obviously, with that continued growth of online, not just because of the pandemic, how important is it for you to maintain a physical presence in retail stores and stockists for your brand?
Well, it's very, very important for us. Just to reiterate the point I made earlier, that we're firmly committed to retail, to bricks and mortar stores, despite a growing online business. And actually, I just wanted to add on just to the last question as well. One of the things that we do is we still have a team of about 100 people who go into physical stores to merchandise products and to do product training and support the retailer. And this is something which is fundamental to our model. People who've tried to compete with us have not done that, and that's quite often where they've come unstuck. And so these people are going into stores on the high street. They're in JML vans, and they're going into the shops to merchandise, but they're also shopping there. They're buying their lunch there. They're doing all of this kind of thing as well. So as well as supporting the retailers, that helps the whole environment generally. So retail is incredibly important to us. People, our customers, like to touch and feel our products. Of course, they buy them online as well, but bricks and mortar is far more important to them. They like to watch our videos in store. Of course, they can watch them online, but we're all very busy these days. But when you're walking around a store and you see a video in store, you're more likely to watch it. And also we find that people like to buy our products literally within hours of seeing a TV commercial. So TV is still a very, very big part of our marketing mix. Coffee time is a very, very important time for us. And we find that the housewives with kids demographic will see advertising at coffee time, and then they'll go into stores within a couple of hours of seeing those advertisements. So, of course, you can get next day delivery. You can even get same day delivery now online, but that's no substitute for actually being able to pop into a store within a couple of hours of watching a commercial and buying the product there and then. So, yeah, fundamentally important to us going forward.
Thank you very much, sir. Penny, I'm going to come on to you. And in my opener, I talked about there are many people that say the high street's dead, and I don't subscribe to that view personally. I just think that some people get bored by boring shops, and so to go somewhere else or shop online instead. Do you think the high street's dead, or is it just that retail isn't meeting customers' expectations?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, the latter. I think stores continue to play a vital role for us, at least as we're building the brand. And of course, post-pandemic, we are looking at our real estate and how to kind of best maximize that. But if we look at Rituals, our brand is sensory driven. And of course, the physical stores, they enable our customers to touch, to feel, and experience all our different products. I also think it helps connect and build a relationship with our customers. And you can't do that in the same way online. So, stores, I think, that will thrive will need to tap into emotion and the human connection, discovery, and also the community side of it, which we all want and need as humans to survive. It's an instinct, isn't it? So I think we've got a strong brand and strong values, where well-being is really at the heart of everything that we do. And as our kind of philosophy says, we're not here just to sell beauty, we're here to make people feel good. And I think that won't go away. And that's the kind of the brand side. But, looking at our staff, we train our staff. We've got really passionate people on the shop floor that genuinely love connecting with consumers. And if customers know that they're coming into a store to get a different experience and a personalized experience that they won't necessarily get online, then for me that's one of the key to the success.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's important. You tapped on something there about how customers are left feeling. And I think sometimes retailers don't think about how a customer feels when they leave the stores, how they feel about the experience, not just what they've purchased, but how they've been left feeling and what they'll remember. Thank you for that. While I've got you, Penny, I'm going to stay with you. We've got a question in from Brendan. It's actually about peak, so Christmas trading. How are you planning your Christmas trading sort of resource requirements, given that this Christmas is likely to see different shopping behaviors to previous ones?
A good question. We've seen a double-digit growth on 19 numbers post the pandemic. So we've obviously followed the trend so far and are planning really carefully what we think our targets are going to be for our sales targets for the golden quarter, as we say. So I think what we've done is identified, what our targets per store are. We've actually looked at, again, 19 numbers and put people in the stores as and when. We've got a system and we can see, where our peak or our peaks are. So we're able to add those people in a store where needed. We also have we'll have a mobile team in place to be able to kind of move around and fill some potential gaps. But of course, early planning in Christmas, I think, is vital. So we've got our campaigns that are going to start running from the 1st of October to start hiring Christmas temps, because I think that's really important, and also training our temps to be able to give that great customer service. And of course, behind the scenes as well, we're also planning for like a contingency plan if things don't go to plan. I don't think we'll have another lockdown, but I think we've got to be really prepared to be able to utilize the tools that we also do have in place, like our private shopping, virtual personal shopping tools, the ship from store and the click and collect as well.
Thank you so much for that. And I've got some more questions coming in as well, which I'm going to put to all of you in a second. But for now, Penny, I'll come back to you shortly. Thank you. David, let's go back to that pop-up conversation. So in the session before, we had Rebecca from Psychology, which is doing some great work in kind of bringing brands together in kind of a mutually beneficial way in our high streets. Recently, I met John Hoyle last week, who's also the founder of Souk as well, which has been making a bit of a name for itself as a pop-up, I guess, enabler. Are pop-ups the answers to the high street woes? You love a pop-up, so are they the answer?
Sadly, I'm not sure that I think they are. I don't see pop-ups filling the vacant units of our high streets and shopping centres. There may be some advantage for landlords in their rates mitigation strategies or to cover embarrassing voids. But that's looking at things from a landlord perspective and not really addressing the needs of customers. What customers want when they visit a store is to be able to browse the full range, handle the product, in Penny's case, smell the product perhaps, and if appropriate, try it on. And they want to be able to do this at a time and place that's convenient for them. And if they visit a store one week, they want that store to be there the next time they come back. And for most retailers, I think short-term temporary stores are not really appropriate for the products they sell. Where it does make sense is when someone wants to trial a retail concept, for example, and perhaps more importantly, when there's a seasonal product or seasonal demand. The stall in the lay-by selling strawberries is an entirely appropriate pop-up store. And calendar club's a little bit like that. There are a few people that want to buy a calendar in May, but thankfully there are millions of customers that want to buy a calendar in the closing months of the year before the start of the new calendar year. And pop-up retailing has its own disciplines and pressures, and I think many retailers, frankly, would struggle with this. Fundamentally, everything we do is what other retailers do. It's just done in a very contracted period. Calendar Club sources, finds 250 to 300 stores every year. We then fit them out, staff them, stock them, replenish them, all in the space of trading for 12 weeks, and then we close them down again. And this imposes particular organizational, logistical, and perhaps most importantly, cash flow pressures that I think would be a challenge for many permanent retailers. So I'm sorry to say, but I don't think pop-ups meet the needs of customers of most retailers. They don't suit the product mix of most retailers. And I think most retailers would struggle with the business model. So sadly, I don't see pop-ups being the answer. I think they're a very good business model, but it's not going to be prevalent across a wide range of retailing sectors.
That's a really interesting view, and I didn't, hadn't even factored into my head that you opened that many stores in such a short period. So yeah, logistically, my brain is spinning about how much there must be to do in that very compressed period. So impressive work. I love the fact you mentioned the strawberry retailers by the side of the road. I love the fact they still exist. It's such a memory from childhood. I stopped at one recently, actually. I was down in Devon, and I pulled over just because I wanted to support them, because there was just this lady sat there all alone in a lay-by. So I'm like, I'm going to go and buy some strawberries from her, and they were delicious. So we love a strawberry vendor. This is a really interesting one, guys. So this is from a TRB guest, so thank you. And they're saying, we're all aware of the need to increase footfall. So why are retailers still offering online only preferable offers? Why aren't they offering in-store only preferable offers? That's a really interesting view. Ken, any thoughts?
Well, I can only guess that the economics stack up online but don't stack up in store, or the fulfillment, stock volumes, something like that. I'm guessing, because I'm not a bricks and mortar retailer. We're an online retailer, and we're a wholesaler to bricks and mortar. So I'm guessing, but I think it's a good point, well made. And certainly we've run promotions which we've advertised as not available online. Must admit, we've also done the opposite and said, not available in stores. So sometimes if you can direct the potential, the total addressable market to a very narrow channel, you can achieve a very profitable model. So it's a tactic that people have used since time immemorial. So yeah, I'm guessing, though, I have to be honest.
Okay, interesting. And then it's a great point. I think one to consider for retailers watching today. And then another question in from Robert, and I'm going to ask you, Penny, if I may. Obviously, there's a lot of hype that shops will be empty by Christmas because of this big logistical issue that we're having, getting things to move around the country. Are you guys concerned about lack of stock impacting your ability to deliver? Any thoughts?
Yes, it's a really good question, and I wish I had a globe that could give me the answer. But I think, like last year, well, and actually the year before, better planning I think is crucial. So we looked at because our stores are on average 70 square meters, so they're not big stores, but we've looked at external units to actually bring in stock earlier. So we're starting to pile up on Christmas gift sets, because gifting is a big part of our business, from actually from next week. So that's the best we can do. I mean, look at last year. We did the same for last year. Obviously, we went into lockdown, and then we were stuck with so much kind of excess stock. So it's a difficult one. I think no one knows, but the better you can plan for these eventualities, I think the better.
Yeah, because Robert's asking the question again around stock. Thank you, Robert, for your engagement this morning. So if we do get to a situation where stock is limited, I guess you're in that situation then when you have to decide whether you push more to stores or hold more back online. I
think it also depends on how many SKUs you've got. I mean, we've got about 700 SKUs in store,
right?
And a 95% availability at this point in time. So for me, if you get to kind of the 70%, it's about training your staff to be able to sell, so many other products that you might have in store. But yes, it's a good one. If you've got less SKUs, then you've got to think about, right, where do you want to drive those customers so you don't lose that sale? And it could be, on your .com, but it can also be with another retailer.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this logistical thing is just an unknown right now, and it's, you can't just blame the media. Some people are saying it's all the media's fault. If they hadn't reported on it, there'd have been no panic buying. But, I think the very nature of the beast is that the media need to report what's going on. And so they reported that, I think on Friday, 8% of petrol stations were closed, and that in itself then created panic. But this government was warned in June there was going to be a lack of HGV drivers. And so we've got this kind of weird, horrible, hot mess of pandemic, Brexit consequences, and panic buying from the great British public going on to create the situation that we're in now. And it's just another thing to go into the in tray of already stressed out retailers, whether they be physical or online. Thank you for that, Penny. This is from an anonymous attendee. I'll ask for your help with it, David. I'm not quite sure I fully get the question, but I'll read it out. So how much of a priority is store sustainability on property strategies? I think that's probably a difficult one for you to answer as a pop-up retailer, but what do you think the person's getting at?
It's not too bad, I think, at least the way I would answer it. We've put a lot of effort into measuring our carbon footprint, and for those that know this stuff, essentially when you measure your carbon footprint, it's divided between direct impact and indirect impact. And the direct impact is everything that we do within our building and with our people. And that's where we've put our greatest effort so far. So we've made a lot of effort here, moving to LED lighting, for example, changing company cars to hybrids and electric and so on, all with the aim of reducing our carbon footprint. When it comes to indirect, you've got to work with your suppliers. And in this case, one of our suppliers, of course, is our landlords. So at this stage, I would say we have not done anything in terms of working with landlords to try to reduce the carbon footprint of the property that we rent. But that is the next step for us, is to working with our suppliers overseas and working with our suppliers, in this case, landlords of the stores that we take.
And I guess that the way that you build them, and and the reusability of the I guess the inside kit for future stores, yeah.
Asking them to switch to sustainable utility services, for example, gas and electricity. Moving to green suppliers, that would be an example of how they can shift their balance, and that would then in turn help our indirect carbon footprint.
Thank you, sir. We're going to have to wrap actually, but I'm going to come to each of you with a closing question. This is from Brendan. So this is your swan song, panelists. I'll come to you in turn. But Brendan, thanks for this. Ken, coming to you. Do you think different demographic customer segments impact whether they shop online or in store? So in other words, do some segments prefer the in-person experience?
Absolutely. I mean, we all know that the younger generation are more comfortable shopping online, but it is homogenizing, because as the older people become much more akin to shopping online, the silver surfers and all that kind of stuff. But absolutely, it does. Yeah, you can look at different demographics and see that their shopping patterns are very different.
Penny, what's your view?
Sorry, Darren, I was unplugged for a few seconds. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. It's about different customer segments. So, some prefer naturally just to shop online and that's it. Do some prefer only shop? So I guess how do you capture those segments, especially for a brand like Rituals?
We've got a really good CRM database. So I think the key thing is, if it's a new customer, they usually come into store to experience a brand. 25% of our business is also on new products. So we find that people of all ages, doesn't matter whether demographics or kind of or age, whether they come into store or shop online. Of course, the repeat customers who already know the brand, and want to top up, then that's when they go online and do the kind of their topping up. But in general, we see that there's a bigger kind of basket spend, regardless of age, when customers do come into store.
Got it. And thank you so much for that as well. I'm sorry you had a bit of there, but we got you back as well. So thank you very much. David, I'm going to sort of pivot slightly away from that question just for you to close as well, because obviously you are a pop-up, and so you're relying on that segment that likes coming to stores. And I think there's a real spontaneity about shopping at the Calendar Club. It's a lovely sort of extra stocking filler gift that attracts that footfall. But you were talking about logistical challenges of getting all these stores open quickly. And someone here has just sort of made a point really about, is there perhaps a room for more local manufacturing or warehousing in local towns to reduce distance traveled? So what would be your view on that? Would that help a business like yours to have more local distribution, or would it not?
I doubt it, actually. The biggest problem for us is making sure that the stock is in the right place at the right time. And the risk is, we've been thinking through the issues related to, the HD driver shortage and what we do with our replenishment this year. And there's a temptation to push more of it out early. But the risk if we do that is that it ends up in a store and doesn't sell. And then in another store, we have a shortage because they've sold through on a particular calendar title. So by having everything from a central warehouse, we can manage that stock replenishment much more carefully and make sure the right stock gets to the right store at the right time. And if we distribute it out into local warehouses or local storage, then that becomes much more challenging. So I think, from our perspective, it's better to control from the centre.
Got it. Thank you, sir. And apologies to Waybud Ewer. It looks like it. I'm sorry if I'm reading that name out wrong. They wanted to talk about consumer data and using that to push footfall into retail unit to, drive impulse buys or in Penny's example, sell more gift boxes. But we didn't get to your question. So I'm sure our retailers do use consumer data. I'm assuming they do to push footfall in. But I'll leave that as a food for thought, an unanswered food for thought. Sorry to rush this. We could have just gone on and on and on, I think, but the very nature of these events this morning is we are literally running back to back until 1 p.m. and then we're done. So I'm going to have to cut it short. But Ken, Penny, David, you've all done a brilliant job today. Thank you so much. Our tech seems to settled. Come back in 9 minutes time for our next webinar, which will be continuing this subject around the future of the high street and diving in a bit into consumer behavior. So grab yourself a quick kettle break, make yourself a nice drink, come back and see us in 9 minutes. But again, Ken, Penny, David, thank you for your input. Good luck this season as well. Have a brilliant trading season and look forward to catching up with you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Very much.
Bye.